Ladies and gentlemen, our next competitor. Our next competitor is Simon McAllister, representing the Australian Capital Territory, for the topic that conscience does make cowards of us all. Please welcome Simon.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine that you are members of a jury. Conscience is on trial. The charge that conscience makes cowards of us all. Tonight, I'm going to be reviewing the charge. I'm going to demonstrate that conscience does not make cowards of us all. But there are two fears that do, and those who listen to the voice of conscience can overcome those two fears. The charge was made by Shakespeare's Hamlet, Prince of Denmark. He had discovered that his uncle had killed his father and shortly after married his mother. Brooding on these events, he considers taking his own life, to be or not to be. He has the sword drawn, so to speak, and then something stops him. He considers that God will judge his action. He then flings the sword to the ground and says, thus conscience makes cowards of us all. But it is not conscience that makes cowards of us all. There are two fears that make cowards of us all. The fear of public opinion. The fear of those in power. The first fear, the fear of public opinion. A psychologist by the name of Ash designed an experiment. And like many of these experiments, things are not as they seem. On the surface, the experiment seemed to be about visual perception. The subjects were shown a line on one side of the screen, and they had to match it with one of three lines on the other side, A, B, or C. It was a very easy test. When people did it by themselves, 99% of the subjects got it right every single time. But there was a twist. Unknown to the subjects, they were grouped with 7 actors who'd been told to give the wrong answer on a number of occasions. To demonstrate, imagine that this gentleman here was the subject. He could clearly see, being from ACT and Clever, that the correct answer was A. But then he hears the responses from everyone else on his table. B, 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 B. All eyes are on him. What will he say? Now, if Phil was like approximately a third of the subjects, he would go with the group right or wrong every single time. If he was like 75% of the subjects, he would go with the group when they were wrong at least once during the experiment. Thus, public opinion makes cowards of us all, but not those who listen to the voice of conscience, not to Socrates. Socrates showed to the ancient Athenians that they did not know what they thought they knew. He poured scorn on any who considered wealth or power or pleasure or reputation more important than justice. The verdict of public opinion was clear. Shut up, Socrates, you're making us look bad. The verdict of public opinion was fixed. Socrates must drink the poison. The verdict of public opinion was firm. Socrates must die. Socrates remained calm throughout his trial. He remained calm in the final days awaiting his sentence. And he remained calm in the last hours of his life, continuing to philosophize and to encourage his hearers towards justice. By listening to the voice of conscience, he had conquered the fear of public opinion. The second fear that makes cowards of us all is the fear of those in power. A group of mice were concerned about the activities of the neighbourhood cat. And one mouse, decided that the best way to deal with the problem was to put a bell on the cat's tail. Everyone cheered. This was the best thing ever. He was the wisest mouse since Mickey. Then there was a small squeak from the back of the room. Who shall bell the cat? Silence. Thus, the fear of power makes mice out of men and cowards out of mice. A certain accountant, obviously not our esteemed chairman, was called into the CEO's office, and the CEO asked him, "What is 2 plus 2? And the accountant replied, "What would you like it to be, sir?" But it is not just in fables and jokes that power makes cowards of us all. There was another experiment done by Milgram in the 1970s. And subjects were told to give electric shocks to people in another room. They were told to give a shock. They did. They were told to increase the voltage. They did. Grunts were heard. They were told to increase it further. Screams were heard. They were told to increase it further. Shrieks of agony were heard. They were told to increase it further still. There was banging on the wall. People said, "Stop, I've got a heart condition." Still, they continued. 60% of the subjects gave the highest dose of 450 volts. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, just because someone in power, someone in a white suit, told them to do so. Now, you can rest easy, ladies and gentlemen, because there was no actual shock. There was a tape recording of those screams and those noises. But the subjects didn't know that. Thus, power makes cowards of us all. It makes cowards, making us silent like the mouse. It makes us cowards, flattering like that accountant who's not like our esteemed chairman. Like it makes us blindly obey like those who gave the shock again and again and again. But not to those who listen to the voice of conscience. A certain emperor in the Ming dynasty in China gave a decree that none of his councillors should dare contradict anything that he had said. Anyone who did would be beaten to death with a bamboo stick. But there was one Confucian scholar who listened to the voice of conscience. He loved his emperor too much to flatter him. He loved his fellow countrymen too much to remain silent when he ought to speak. He loved his honour too much to become a fraud. So one day, gathering his courage, he decided to make a dramatic entrance into the court. One day, this Confucian scholar carried his coffin into the court. He then proceeded to tell the emperor not what he wanted to hear, but what he truly needed to hear. He then, fully aware of the consequences, lay down in his coffin. By listening to the voice of conscience, he had overcome the fear of those in power. The emperor was so impressed that he spared his life. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have seen that it is not conscience that makes cowards of us all. The fear of public opinion, the fear of power, makes cowards of us all. And by listening to conscience, we can overcome those fears. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury, you must declare conscience not guilty.